So good afternoon. I'm not here to announce our special guest presenter, but I did want to mention one programmatic item that might be of interest. We hope it's of interest to a couple of you. As you may know, we have ourselves a fantastic volunteer crew here, many of whom are docents who take school groups around, others who are here in the afternoons to answer questions from our visitors, others who work up in our research library or with our archives. And we are starting a volunteer class next Wednesday. That goes for 10 weeks, Wednesday mornings from 9:30 till 12. After that, you become part of our volunteer council. So we have room for a few more. If you'd like to join us, please find me. My name is Bob Rocha. And if you want to call, my extension here is 149. And the other item is, I'm hoping some of you may have some teacher friends or nieces and nephews, sons and daughters. We're running a professional development workshop here next Saturday and Sunday. It's called Schooling with Whales, and it's how to use whales in the classroom to teach a whole variety of subjects. I have some printed versions of the course description in my hands. If you'd like one to pass it along, that would be fantastic. And with that, I'm going to announce my colleague, Christina Canet, who is our curator of collections and exhibitions, and she's going to introduce our special guest today. So, Christina, the floor is yours.
Hello. Sorry, I'm running in and out of breath. But welcome, everybody. I'm the curator of exhibitions and collections at the New Bedford Whaling Museum. And thank you so much for coming today to hear Connie Bacon's talk. Connie is on our collections committee, so she's very involved in the acquisitions of the museum collection. And she's also a ceramic artist herself, so we respect her opinion greatly and does beautiful work. And she's also curated an exhibition that opened, was it last month? Seems like a long time ago already. Last month. It's up in the Center Street Gallery, and it's a selection of ceramic pieces in our permanent collection. Everything from pre-Columbian Peruvian pieces to Chris Guston is a contemporary ceramic artist in the area. And this is to complement the NCECA show that's next door of Earth and Sea. And that's all contemporary ceramic artists from New England. So, and I also wanted to mention that Connie is manager for Instagram Massachusetts, as well as being a ceramic artist. And I'm really looking forward to her talk today, and I'm sure she'll give you a really unique and wonderful perspective on our collection. So welcome, Connie Bacon.
Thank you, Christina. Today my talk is going to be a little bit all over the place, so be prepared for that. But sort of one of the overarching things that I'm going to be talking about is self-expression. And one of the most common ways that I'm sure you guys have all heard of is the selfie. How many people have heard of selfies or know what they are? All right. So as you might know, you've seen people hanging around doing stuff like this. Right? Like they're like trying to get a focus on themselves. Taking some pictures of themselves. Taking some pictures with people they know. All right, looking good.
Taking pictures with microphones in their faces.
Exactly. Well, some of them are about that good, so you never know. So selfies are sort of a new way of, self-expression. Easy, quick. Anyone can do it. It doesn't have to be pretty, and often it's not. Taken with some kind of handheld device. Usually it's a phone, sometimes an iPad. If you want to be really fancy, you can use a GoPro stick. You might have seen people using those. Forward. But the first selfie was actually taken a really long time ago in 1839 by Robert Cornelius, and he was one of the first photographers in America. And this picture that he took of himself was, it's a daguerreotype, and it was also one of the first pictures taken of an actual person. So selfies have been around since 1839. And so as cameras sort of became smaller, self-timers were invented, they became easier. I mean, lugging around some huge camera trying to take a picture of yourself wasn't very easy, but the little Instamatic ones, self-timers. But the modern meaning of the word selfie and the use of the word selfie came around kind of in the turn of this century, probably sometime around 2002, but it became very popular in 2010 with the invention of the self-facing camera on the iPhone 4. And so after that, selfies and the idea of this kind of self-expression proliferated everywhere, so much so that by 2013, the Oxford English Dictionary made selfie the word of the year because they were everywhere by 2013. And so today, thousands of selfies get taken every minute, posted to various forms of social media, such as Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, Tumblr, Snapchat. I mean, it's just endless, the number of media that you see them on. So you might be wondering, what does this have to do with the Whaling Museum, or why are we even talking about this? But technology sort of changed the way we think about self-expression with the way we look at selfies, but then that was also true with different kinds of technology developed in the past. So one question I have for you guys was, what were sort of some ways that you could sort of have a picture of yourself or of someone else back in early America? Like, can you guys think of ways that that might have happened way back when? Painting, exactly. That's the most common. Let's see if I can get this to work. So this is a picture from upstairs, actually. I think it's on view right now in the Harboring Hope exhibit. And you'll also see reference to this a bit later. But it was done by Frederick Mayhew, and it's a double portrait of a sea captain and his wife, done in 1829. And so this was very expensive, and only the very wealthy could afford to have this kind of portrait done. Another type of portrait that is sort of unique to this place and this area maybe a little bit is the scrimshaw portraits that if you were out at sea for many, many years, you might want to remember what your significant other looked like, and you needed something to do out there at sea. So a lot of people would carve these, but again, very labor intensive, and it required a certain amount of skill that not everyone had. So here's another. This is just another type of portrait. This is a beautiful piece painted actually on porcelain. It's tiny. It's more the size of a selfie. It's only about this big in real life, of this woman. She's a young woman. We don't really know much about her. We know that her name was Melissa Culloch Watkins, and this piece was made in 1865. Not really sure what might have happened with this piece, if it was, painted, I don't know why. A lot of pieces we have in the museum like this are on actually whalebone or pieces of scrimshaw, but this one's kind of different because it's on porcelain. But these are all, again, really difficult and expensive things to make. They take a lot of time and a lot of skill, so not everyone had access to that. But around the time when America was new, we had a change in technology with ceramics, and that was sort of, you can see here, called transferware. And so what they could do, instead of having to paint individual pieces separately with a paintbrush, they could, let me see if I can figure out how to get this to work. They could just use these etchings and put them on an already made piece of ceramics. And then maybe later add a little bit of personalization there. And so it's not exactly clear when transferware was invented. Some people think it was a man named John Sadler who was in Liverpool. Some people, it might have been someone else, but he applied for a patent in 1756, but it was denied. But after that time, it sort of went into production in Liverpool, and these pieces became very popular in the new country, America, even though they were being made in England, which was kind of ironic. But there was a big trade between Liverpool and the US, and some people were, quick to put pride aside and make some money off the new Americans. And so this is one of the pieces that they made. A lot of pieces from this time were made at the Herculaneum pottery from 1794 to 1841. And as I said, because of the close ties with England, these pieces were popular. Some of the early designs were more sort of to mimic the early Chinese porcelain pieces. But then as time went on, they started to develop pieces like this, which included, ships or sort of patriotic themes or famous buildings or that kind of thing. And those tended to be the most popular in the American market. Let's see. So this is a similar piece with another whaling ship name here on the bottom. And this one has a little bit more color than the other one. And there's a kind of a funny story about this ship, actually. This picture was purchased by a man named James Howland for his father when he went on a trip to Liverpool. But so he put the name of his father's ship on the bottom, but instead of putting his father's initials on they're kind of underneath the spout. You can't see them in this picture. He put his own and his wife's initials there. And so so the story goes that when this ship was trying to be christened, the guy tried to name it after his wife, whose name was Reliance, and they tried to christen it 3 times, and it wouldn't go into the water. So finally his wife said, "Why don't you name it something else? Name it Fame." And so then it just slid right into the water. So I thought that was kind of a funny story, given the idea of 15 minutes of fame and the selfies and that kind of thing. So it eventually went into the water. But on the other sides of these, there are usually they're decorated on all the sides, and they sort of have different patriotic scenes on them. This one has, in addition to the ship on this side, has a memorial to Washington on the other side, and some other sort of 13 colonies kinds of motifs on them, and so that's sort of those. So the technique for these is called overglaze printing. And so what they would do, I don't know if this is too close, if you guys can see that, so this is a copper plate. And again, we see the ship. And if you notice, all the ships that we saw previously, they're all exactly the same ship. It's just over and over, they would use the same one. When I was first looking into these pictures, I hadn't spent too much time with them. I was all excited because I thought each one would be individual and it was the exact replica of the ship with the name and all of that. And then I realized, wait a minute, these ships are all the same. So they would use the same plate and just later add on like whatever name you wanted kind of on the bottom, which made it much less expensive. So people, more kinds of people had access to it. It wasn't just something for the very wealthy. And so this process, so you can see here, this guy is etching into the copper plate, which is sort of covered in wax first, and then he etches through down into the copper. And then here, the next step is that he is wiping linseed oil onto the design, which has these crevices now, into the copper. And so then he'll wipe it clean, and the oil will remain inside the etching lines. So the next step is that you take this glue bat, which is this shiny thing on the side here, which is just made out of gelatin, actually. So you would carefully fold that over onto the copper plate, which has the oil in the cracks, and the gelatin would actually pick up all the little bits of oil in the design. And then I don't know if can you guys see the ship on the plate? So let's see. So what's left right here is the design left, just the oil markings. And so very carefully, after that, they would dust it with some kind of colorant, usually like an iron oxide or something, just to, and that would stick to the oil. And then they would fire it, and voila, you have a nice, pretty plate with that ship again. This one's a little different, but it's not too much different. We have a few upstairs that have this ship on it too. So if we go back, you will notice that from the beginning, this plate is shiny. And that means it's already been fired. You could just take that plate before he ever puts anything on it and eat off of it, and it would be totally fine. And so one problem with this was that when you would use these plates or pitchers or whatever kind of porcelain or ceramic it happened to be on, the design would come off. So things were a little bit delicate. So later what happened was they developed a process where they could put, it's a similar process of making it, but then they could put it underneath the glaze and fire it. So this, for a plate like this, if you rubbed your fork on it or stacked it many, many times in your cupboard, the design won't come off because it's underneath the glaze, which is kind of like a layer of glass on top of the ceramic. So later, so this was sort of another technology that came along. And this was invented later by the Wedgwood factory in Staffordshire, England, which you can see. This is the back of the plate right here. If you're a ceramicist, you know that you always turn ceramics over and look underneath to see what's there, because that's sometimes more interesting than what's on top. So you can see here that this one was made in Staffordshire, England. This design, which is clearly New Bedford, I don't know if you guys can see this very well here, but this is a New Bedford souvenir plate, and there are all kinds of little scenes. You can see the lighthouse here. I think this is the armory right here, just around the edge. So this company seems to have done a lot of the ceramics during this time, because a lot of the pieces upstairs of this souvenir ware happen to have this company on the bottom. And let's see, what else do we have to say about that? Okay, so yeah, so that's that. So this is another piece of souvenir ware, which isn't obvious from this angle. On the other side of the picture is the whaleboat Niger. And this whaleboat, says on the pot that it was the last of the famous fully rigged ships formerly engaged in whaling. And it was actually, the ship was made in Mattapoisett, but sailed out of New Bedford. And then up in the spout right here on the inside, you can see that when we go upstairs, it says the Whaling City, souvenir of New Bedford, Mass. So this is a piece that, as well as the plate that you saw previously, that you might have if you lived here, but also something that you might bring home if you had been. And the previous one, sort of gives you the tour book too. You can see, like, these are all the great sites that you should see in New Bedford if you visit. And this is just a little card that I found advertising Bliss and Nye, which is that company that was on the bottom of that earlier plate. And I love the graphics on this, and I just thought it was really cool, and it's from New Bedford, so I thought I would just squeeze that in because it's cool. Let's see. So when I put together the vessels exhibit upstairs, the transferware is sort of where I started because, I've seen these pictures around in the museum for, many years and always loved them. And so I sort of started there. Plus, but then, of course, after you search around, you find tons of other great things. So this is just one of the types of ceramics that the New Bedford Whaling Museum is really strong in and has a great collection. Upstairs, when we go later, another thing that we'll see is they also have, there's some great Delftware plates and some tiles up there, the souvenirware, and then the ceremonial vessels from Nazca, which are after going through all of the ceramics in this museum to put together this exhibit, I sort of found that those were my favorite pieces. They're also the oldest pieces, and I should have made slides of those, but I did not. And then there's a couple of beautiful modern pieces that were created by people who either live in the area. Christina mentioned Chris Guston earlier. And then another piece by a woman who is not from this area, but she was asked to do a piece that sort of spoke to New Bedford, and she chose the harpoon, one of the harpoons from the collection, and she made thousands of them, and we just have a few little ones upstairs, but it's meant to fill a room all by itself, so those are really fun. So hopefully we can talk about those upstairs later. The other exhibit that's upstairs is called Of Land and Sea, and the pieces in that collection are all modern. 8 artists from the New England area were asked to come and do responses to any piece that they wanted to in the collection, so they could choose anything. And some of them chose multiple pieces, but they sort of took the idea of self-expression via selfie, which we can all do as long as we have a phone or a camera, to a whole nother level. I mean, they're artists by trade, and they made these amazing, amazing pieces. So those we're going to go see those later today, too, in the Breitmeyer Gallery. And those pieces are not part of the permanent collection, but we hope at some point that maybe a couple of them will become part of the permanent collection via, generous donations or something like that. So one of them that sort of speaks to the idea of selfies a little bit, although in a much more nuanced and sophisticated way, is this piece by Seth Rainville. And he grew up in this area when he was a kid. He married his wife here at the museum, and he moved away for a little while, but he's back, and he's now raising his family here. And so he's had a lot of experience, not just at this museum, but in this area. And there's a lot going on in this pot, but it is a little bit darker than, this city has had a history that has been both, good and bad. It had its ups and downs, and this pot sort of describes that even in its title. It's called Ebb and Flow, which you can see just a little bit left right there of the title. But so this piece part up here is part of the Widow's Walk idea from on the tops of houses around New Bedford. You can see, and you can see a woman kind of shadowed in there. Here, this is a great whaling scene here. So sort of, and this is sort of modern New Bedford, and these guys are sort of living under the shadow of all of this history. And this is a friend of his who actually lost his job and ended up committing suicide, and it happens to be in a lot of his Seth's work. He kind of is fixated on this couple. But it's, sort of, it's it's not just a sort of a selfie, it's like his life, a narration of, his life and sort of what a lot of lives of people here in New Bedford. Another piece that's in that collection is, this isn't a great photograph, but this one was done by Kathy King, and she is the director of the Harvard University Ceramics Department, and quite a character. Got to meet her for the first time a couple of weeks ago, and she's great. But much of her work deals with the relationship, intimate relationships between people. And you can see here, this is sort of a take on this portrait. She used this as an inspiration, but this is sort of every man's version of that. This is the whaling captain. This is, the regular sailor who might have been on that boat, and his, I'm assuming it's wife, but maybe not. But you can see one thing that I thought was kind of interesting about this is that in this portrait, the woman is extremely delicate. She's wearing beautiful, fine clothing, and the same for him. These people are strong. Look at the muscles that they have. It's very strong people. Just trying to having the same sort of feelings that maybe the captain and his wife did, but expressed a little bit differently. And so let's see, we'll go through these. And this one is a little bit more abstract at first when you look at it. This piece was done by Jim Lawton, and he is the director of the ceramics department here at UMass Dartmouth. And this piece, if you look at it really carefully, you can tell that it's calligraphy inspired. And this part is backwards, and then there's another one behind it that's forwards, but it says Savannah. And he took his inspiration from some of the logbooks, some of which are beautifully rendered, and this is one of them, just with drawings and all kinds of things. But one thing that inspired Jim in this is that he loved this person's experimentation with calligraphy. And it was, it looked to him like what this person did was when they were going out to sea, in Savannah, which is the name of the whale boat that they went out on, that his calligraphy would lean one way, and then on the way home, he would make it lean the other way. So it's kind of an artistic way of describing the journey. And it also happens that Jim is from Savannah, so I think he was inspired by that as well, to sort of use that particular word. What else do we have here? Let's see. So let's see, what's after that? I don't know. So just as sort of the smartphone selfies do today, TransferWare pictures enabled the middle and upper middle classes a chance to express to those around them their role in society with a bit of a personal touch that did not require special skills of an artist or a ton of money to have an artist make for them. And I guess I have been inspired in my own work from this place, and I don't know if you guys are creative in any way, like with different things, whether it be photography, drawing, knitting, even telling stories. To think about that as you look around the museum today and on other visits, just to think about how you might also be inspired and to sort of take a piece of work that maybe has nothing to do with the things that you usually do and make a reaction piece, because it's kind of a fun experiment to do.